Welcome to Econ Nerds Live, a celebration and discussion of everything economics related. I'm your host, Matt Hill. With me, as usual, Ariel Slonim. Ariel, how are you today?
Doing great.
You're coming to us live from an undisclosed location. I will disclose my location. I am apropos for the you know that word, apropos, whatever.
Apropos.
There we go. That word. For the podcast, I am in the Federal Reserve right now. I am deep in the bowels of the St. Louis Federal Reserve. So I'm here just setting monetary policy, just giving my advice. I'm here for a conference. So that is why my background looks totally different. And if the recording is messed up in some way, blame the government. Blame Jerome Powell. He got his hands on it and, corrupted it in some way. Let's start. I guess we should start with a news quiz. I'm at a conference. I've been hearing a lot about the news quiz from people. People have been coming up to me saying, I listen to the podcast. I do terrible at the news quiz. So
okay, I take this as a personal challenge. So I want them to be challenging news quizzes, but we'll start off with this first question since you're at the Federal Reserve. The Federal Reserve held rates steady yesterday. What is the current target federal funds rate? Do you need me to give you options?
Yes, you can give me options. I was hoping you would ask me if they held it steady or not, and I would know that. But
that would be too easy, Matt.
Okay, all right. Let's have the options.
So it's a 0.25. It's a 25 basis point window, right? So I'm going to give you four windows. Okay. 4 to 4.25%. Okay. 4.25 to 4.5%. 4.5 to 4.75%, or 4.75 to 5%. So basically 25 basis point windows between 4 and 5.
Okay. So I thought it was 4.25. And so now I'm wondering, and now I'm just trying to decide which bucket is it should I go with? I'm going to go with the 4.25 to 4.5.
You are correct. So that has been the rate that the Fed is holding steady at.
And just for listeners, that's the rate the Fed pays on reserves held at the Fed. So if you're a bank and you want to hold interest rates, is that? I mean,
no,
no, that's not. Okay,
that's the target federal funds rate that they're targeting. The Federal Open Market Committee held the target federal funds rate steady.
That's the rate that banks lend to each other. So
yes, that the Federal Reserve influences but does not control.
Right. Okay. But the way they influence it is by paying interest on reserves held at the Fed. This is all probably too complicated for our listeners.
So for the record, the current interest on reserve balance rate is 4.4%.
Okay.
So in that target window,
right,
between 4.25 and 4.5.
And this, for listeners, this is why economics is so confusing. The Fed funds rate is not directly controlled by the Fed, but they target it, but they control the interest on reserve balances. Now, for listeners, the interest rate that probably matters to you is the mortgage rate, which is based on the 10-year T-bill, I believe. And so the Fed doesn't really control that at all. So it's people may be wondering, oh, the Fed cut rates, but it's not showing up on my mortgage or the potential mortgage. That's because that is more determined by the market forces.
Yes. Okay. Next Federal Reserve question. Okay.
Oh, is it all Fed? Did you make a special Federal Reserve?
There's just two.
Two. All right.
Okay. When does the Fed run a negative balance sheet? You have only two options. Okay. When it implements expansionary monetary policy or when it implements contractionary monetary policy.
Wait, sorry. Ask me that again.
When does the Fed run a negative balance sheet?
Oh, expansionary monetary policy. Is that right?
Incorrect. It is actually contractionary monetary policy because when it boosts that interest on reserve balances that it pays, when that increases.
Oh, right. Sorry. Yes, they're paying out.
So that's
I was thinking about them more buying, selling assets. Yes. Yeah. So when they raise the rate, they got to pay the banks more. Yes. And they'll lose money.
Yes.
But they can
print money. Their balance sheet, they're essentially printing money. So I called it a balance sheet, not like their actual cash flow, in and out or something. I'm not sure what the other terminology would be.
Yes.
But they add the money to the bank account. So on the balance sheet, it goes negative.
Okay. All right. Oof. All right. I got tripped up there. Very embarrassing. Next question. Hopefully I can redeem it.
We are moving into supply and demand territory. Okay. So beef prices are rising. Which of the following is not a contributing factor to rising beef prices? So here are your four options. A, years of drought have made feeding cattle more expensive. B, ranchers are reserving most of their herds to breed for future years. C, ranchers face high interest rates to invest in herd management. Or D, the U.S. suspended imports of beef from Mexico over flesh-eating flies. So, which of these is not a contributing factor?
What's the first one again?
Years of drought have made feeding cattle more expensive.
Okay, we got years of drought. We got the farmers are, B is they're holding stuff out. They're basically holding cows back. If they're holding cows back and not slaughtering them because they want to like invest in the future, that suggests they think that beef prices will continue to rise. Which I'm wondering about that one. We have the Mexico trade one, the flesh-eating fly. That seems real to me, just because I'm not. Well, a flesh-eating fly though. Do flies eat flesh? Doesn't seem like something you'd make up. So I'm going to go with the flesh-eating fly is real. The drought seems real to me. What I'm missing one. What's D? D
high interest rates.
Obviously, we have high interest rates. That was true. So I guess I'm going to go with B. They're holding holding cows back for, I guess to breed in the future. Although that seems real too. You know what? I'm going to switch at the last second. I'm going to switch here to drought.
Okay. You were on the right track, Matt. It is actually B. So you shouldn't have switched your answer.
Classic money hole problem.
So ranchers are selling right now, and in fact, their herds are going to get smaller for the next few years because they think they want to cash in on those high prices before they go down. But the potential is that next year's herd could be smaller, so pushing prices up again.
Right. The only reason I switched last second because it didn't seem like something you'd make up. Like the drought one seems like something you would have made up, but you sort of just took something that was actually happening and inverted it. Dang. I also would be interested in future beef prices because you could also see them coming down because of competition from like lab grown meat. And so I wonder if they're anticipating, if we have more competition from lab grown meat, prices will be lower. Yeah. So that would again force them to slaughter them today. But it doesn't seem like lab grown meat is taken off in the way that I think maybe we thought it would like 2 years ago.
Yeah, I think I remember Impossible hasn't done as well as they anticipated or gotten I think consumer preferences, they're not getting as many people to take it on and be interested as they anticipated.
Yeah, it seems like they sort of hit the peak. Like it seems like there was a certain amount of people that would be interested and it doesn't go beyond that. But shout out to the people that work for Impossible because they went public like 4 years ago maybe, and they all made a ton of money. I know this because a friend of mine, Ryan, retired. He was part of that. He retired and now he just surfs all day. So congrats to him. He lives in Ventura. Well, he owns a wine shop, which is more like a hobby than like a real job, and just surfs all day because of the Impossible payout. So he got his bag.
Okay. Switching gears here. We're going to talk about tariffs and cars. Okay. Based on what we know so far about Trump's trade deal with Japan, the European Union, the UK, and current tariff rates on Canada and Mexico, which group of auto manufacturers currently gets the best tariff rate? Okay. So A, Japanese automakers, such as Toyota. B, U.S. auto manufacturers with factories distributed across the U.S., Mexico, and Canada. C, UK automakers, which are typically luxury car manufacturers, including Aston Martin, Rolls-Royce, Bentley. And D, EU automakers, Volkswagen, Mercedes-Benz, BMW, Porsche. So grouping by country, but I gave you and listeners some examples of auto manufacturers in each category.
Yeah, it would have been tough because I was going to ask what are the UK what are the UK manufacturers? I guess they still have a few.
They still have a few. They're not your average car, right?
Right. Well, speak for yourself. I'm at the Fed right now. I'm about to roll out of here in my Aston Martin.
Okay, Victoria Beckham.
Well, it's not B. It's not the U.S. I'm going to rule the U.S. out because I remember reading that GM had a bad quarter and they blamed it on tariffs. And also, I think the whole point of the question would be you would think the tariffs are designed to help the U.S. manufacturers, and I'm guessing they're not as good. I am going to go with Japan. That was my initial guess because I know the Japanese companies have a lot of their factories in the U.S. So I'm going to have to go with Japan. but the look on your face seems to suggest I might be wrong.
It is not Japan. Japan is actually doing pretty well. So the Japan deal has 15% tariffs, including auto parts and cars. And they do have US factories, but just based on, I don't know the actual returns for Toyota. I was going based on the 15% rate. The US, GM and Ford have reported pretty big losses. So GM reported a $1.1 billion loss in Q2 from tariffs. Ford has more US manufacturers, and they estimate about a $2 billion loss this year. They think they can offset. It's a $3 billion total loss, but they think they can offset about $1 billion of it. But the surprising answer here is that the UK gets a 10% tariff on the first 100,000 cars that they import, which is a better deal on average than US manufacturers who are importing parts that don't meet the USMCA deal. And 100,000 is about the total market share of Bentleys and Rolls Royces coming into the US. So if you wanted to know, Matt, it is about the entire, it's the same amount as last year's imports for UK automobiles coming in. And Trump said they were very special cars, the Rolls Royce.
There's never been a better time to buy a Rolls Royce, listeners. Go ahead, go out there, buy that Rolls Royce, treat yourself. Have you ever experienced a Rolls Royce, Ariel?
I have not.
So when I was in my early 20s, I was on an MTV reality show where they gave me a Rolls Royce for a day, and I was supposed to drive the Rolls Royce around picking up women. So I drove a Rolls Royce for a day. I experienced the Rolls Royce for a day. I was not impressed. And also I think the ladies were not impressed with either me or the Rolls Royce. If you can track that down, listener, I'm pretty sure it doesn't exist on the internet, thankfully, because this is sort of pre-YouTube. But hey, yeah, I'm not a fan of the Rolls Royces based on that day. But my friends who were producing the show, they took the Rolls Royce out to the clubs at night. That night, they had it for like a whole 24 hours.
And just to add, EU tariffs are about 15%. So Japan and the EU car manufacturers are about on a level playing field when it comes to car imports. Okay, one last question. I'm trying to decide. I had two alternates here.
I think I'm 1 for 4. So
okay. Are you ready for this is the most obscure one.
Oh, okay. Awesome. Okay. Well, I have 1 in 4 chance.
Okay. So California olive growers lobbied and won tariff protection for a specific type of olive. Which variety of olive has an additional 30% tariff as of 2024? It now faces an additional 15% EU tariff on top of it. So it came into the news now.
They got extra tariffs on this olive.
On this one specific type of olive.
Hook this up with more protection.
So, is it the green olive, black olive, Castelveltrano olive, or Kalamata olive?
Well, it's got to be C or D, right? I mean, it's got to be one of these ones down there at the C or D. Oh man, is it C or is it D? Literally, I had never heard of either of these ones, so it's just going to be a stab in the dark. I'm going to go with D. I'll go with D.
You would be incorrect, Matt. It is the black olive. It is the basic black olive.
You made it sound like it was super specific, like all fancy. It's just a regular black olive. That's like the regular kind of olive. Oh, tricked me. I cry foul with the tester. The tester that was overly tricky. Oh, all right. So black olive, the price of black olives going up. Is that it? Did I get 1 out of 5? I think that's the worst I've ever done.
1 out of 5. I do think it is your worst. You can blame the fact that you were traveling.
I've been traveling. I'm yes, and one of the downsides of being on the West Coast, whenever you travel, you have to wake up way early because the rest of the country's ahead of us. All right. So next segment. I thought we could just talk a little bit about the Federal Reserve since it's in the news and since I'm at the Federal Reserve. Just a little bit of I promise I'm not biased by the fact I'm in the bowels of the beast right now. Just because there's been a bit of a fight in the public between Trump and Jerome Powell. Although Jerome Powell hasn't really said anything. He hasn't really commented publicly. essentially, Trump wants the Federal Reserve to lower rates, and there's been some threats that maybe he'll remove Jay Powell. And so I wanted to go through a little bit of the history of the Federal Reserve and central bank independence. I promise I try to make it as interesting as possible. The idea, so the Federal Reserve is our central bank. So they basically are in charge of the money supply, listeners. So it's like they are in charge of they have a dual mandate, meaning their goal is to keep inflation low. They want to keep employment high or as high as possible. And essentially the history of this, or the why it's important, is the more independent your central bank, if you look at relationship between inflation, so inflation's bad, we don't want inflation, and central bank independence, where, okay, how much latitude does the central bank have to operate separate of the rest of the government? Okay, because theoretically, you want them to have the long-term outlook, whereas politicians tend to have a very short-term outlook. They just want to get reelected. So there's this often conflict. And so economists that have looked at this, what they see is basically the more independent your central bank is, the lower inflation is. And so, yes, this independence seems to be important to keep inflation low. And the history of this in the U.S. is Nixon, way back in the early 70s, Nixon used to bully the Fed. Nixon, the Fed chair, Arthur Burns, Nixon wanted low interest rates. He wanted low interest rates to sort of help his reelection chances. And so you can actually go in the tapes, they have the recordings of Nixon, and he tells the Fed chair, he's like, get these, keep these interest rates low. And if the Board of Governors, because the Board of Governors votes on what they're going to do with interest rates, like the Fed, the chairman, brings a, hey, what should we do? And then the Board of Governors vote. And so you see Nixon, he says, if they don't go along with it, kick them in the rump. And so that's his actual quote. He says, kick him in the rump, Arthur. And so we have a very pliant Fed chair. And what happens is the interest rates, they keep the interest rates low. You would roughly think of again, this is more complicated than that, but listeners, you can roughly think keeping the interest rates low means there's a lot of money out there. So when there's a lot of money out there, prices are going to rise, inflation, right? We have less money out there, prices are going to go down. Okay, so we get really bad inflation. So the rest of the 70s is all this crazy inflation, right? And everyone's like, oh, this is awful. This inflation's awful, right? So Carter, late 70s now, Carter appoints a new Fed chair, Paul Volcker. Paul Volcker is, whatever, tough guy. You see a picture of him, he's always smoking a cigar. He doesn't care, right? And his job is to basically bring that inflation under control. And he does that. He jacks up the interest rates, jacks them all the way up. If you're buying a home in 1982, you're paying 20% interest. Okay. Whatever you're buying a home now, it's 6.5, 7, something like that. Imagine 20%. All right. So this is one of the reasons why home prices are so low. Everyone's like, well, look at how cheap homes were in the past. We have supply issues in the present with homes, but one of the issues is interest rates are so high. So that means home prices were lower in the past. All right. So this guy Volcker, he basically breaks the back of inflation. It takes him about 4 years, 3 to 4 years from when he gets appointed to when inflation starts coming down. And people are mad at him, right? Because he has to basically crash the economy. The economy crashes, part of because he's basically constricting the money supply, keeping money, there's less money around. And so the economy does crash and everyone's mad at him, right? People are throwing bricks at him. People are they're throwing bricks at the Federal Reserve building in New York, but it works. He brings inflation down, and we've had fairly low inflation since Volcker up into the recent times. We had the post-COVID inflation surge. Again, largely that's because there was a bunch of money printed or people can argue about this, but my reading of the literature is there was, big expansion of the money supply, but we brought it back down. The Fed has brought that inflation back down. Now, the key thing here is the public expectations. We had really bad inflation in the 70s because the public just expected there to be more and more inflation. They basically didn't trust the government to manage the money. So Volcker's job was super hard because he had to convince people hey, I am serious. We're not printing money anymore. We're serious about fighting inflation. And it created the expectation that the Fed would be tough on inflation. And that's what helped us in the recent crisis, the recent inflation surge. We were able to bring that down, what's called a soft landing. Inflation came down without crashing the economy because there was an expectation, the Fed is professional. The Fed is serious about that. So part of what's interesting about monetary policy is, yes, it's scientific. They change interest rates or they buy assets or they sell assets. But it's also social, or it's also, there's like a narrative to it where you actually have to convince people like, hey, I'm serious, you can trust me, I'm credible. Famous example of this is in Brazil. When they had really bad inflation, part of their strategy to convince the public that they were serious about inflation, the new regime, they switched the entire currency. They basically just renamed the currency to give a clean break, like, hey, we used to do the cruzeiro, now we're doing the real. The real is a different thing, people. You could trust us with the real, and it worked. And so there's a bit of like, I don't know what to call it, but like magic or storytelling where you have to convince people. So it's an art and a science managing the Federal Reserve. This is part of the reason why you don't see Jerome Powell out there yelling, is they have to maintain this image of being like a cold, fair arbiter of the economy. All right, so that's my history of central bank independence and however long that took. Ariel, anything you want to add or correct me on, or just...
So I want to ask you if you know about a story that I heard this week about Volcker. And so, because it came up that, Trump has been, criticizing Powell for not lowering rates. Did Volcker sit down with Reagan and get the approval to jack the interest rates up? What was the relationship there when Reagan took office in 1980? Was Reagan out, putting down Volcker for his high rates, or was he kind of getting a silent approval, even if not a public one?
So both Carter and Reagan were mad at Volcker. Both Carter, it's my understanding, I mean, people could fact check this, but it's my understanding both Carter and Reagan were both like wanted the interest rates to come down. Like, hey, this is like, stop doing this, Volcker. And Volcker's like, no, I'm serious. So it's my understanding that they were both pretty mad at Volcker. Now, what's sad about Carter is, Carter basically takes the hit. Like Carter gets doesn't get reelected. Like he appoints Volcker, who actually beats inflation, but the economy is a disaster under Carter. But it's not really his fault. He kind of inherits it, and he does a lot of really, really good reforms. Like he does a lot of he deregulates a lot of these industries, brought the prices down. He appoints Volcker, who ultimately beats inflation. So he does all these like great reforms, and then the economy is still bad because of the high interest rates into the first half of the 80s. But by the time 84 comes and Reagan's up for re-election, the economy was booming. Like inflation had been beat. A lot of these reforms that Carter did had worked very well. And so you look at the election map, we have these like red, blue maps you see post-presidential election. Like if you look at the one from 1984, when Reagan was re-elected, it's like all red. I think it's like one state. It's like one state that voted for, I forget the Mondale. I think Mondale was the opponent. I could be wrong.
I think that's right.
And so, anyways, and so, yeah, it's like the economy is like, totally booming by the time 84 comes around. And a lot of that can be attributed to Carter. You could watch all this in a future Econ Nerds video that's coming out. But what's funny is there's a whole category of talking called Fed speak, where it's the way the chairman of the Federal Reserve will speak. They speak in a very clinical, non-emotional tone, very opaque. And the design is they don't want to move markets too much one way or the other. They don't want to inflame people one way or the other. And so you can actually take whatever phrase you want, put it into ChatGPT and say, hey, change this into Fed speak, and you'll get a good idea of how clinical they actually speak. So I did that for you today, Ariel. So I have a bit of a quiz for you. Time for the tables to turn.
Okay.
So what I have is I took famous Trump quotes, because Trump, he's currently beefing with the Federal Reserve. So I took, Trump, he's got a few famous quotes, and I took them and I put them into ChatGPT, and I asked them to take the Trump quote and turn it into Fed speak. If the Fed were saying this, how would they phrase it? And so I'm going to read you the Fed version, and you got to give me the Trump version. Okay. See if you could do this. All right, here's our first one. The committee remains committed to fostering conditions consistent with a return to historically favorable macroeconomic baselines. Once again, the committee remains committed to fostering conditions consistent with a return to historically favorable macroeconomic baselines. What Trump quote is this? Of the things Trump is known for, his saying,
make the American economy great again.
just make America great again. Just make America great again. So the way the Fed would say that, the committee remains committed to fostering conditions consistent with the return to historically favorable macroeconomic baselines. All right, next one. Great job. The easy one. Easy one. I got two more. They'll get a little more harder. Actually, this one's pretty easy too. You should be able to. There's a key clue. All right. The implementation of strategic border infrastructure is anticipated with external cost absorption contingent on bilateral negotiations. Once again, I'll give it to you. The implementation of strategic border infrastructure is anticipated with external cost absorption contingent on bilateral negotiation.
We're going to build the wall and make them pay for it.
Yes, we're going to build a wall and Mexico is going to pay for it. See, the Fed with external cost absorption contingent. See, it's very much more clinical. All right. I think this last one's probably going to be the hardest one. Support metrics exhibit notable inelasticity with respect to adverse event shocks. Support metrics exhibit notable inelasticity with respect to adverse event shocks.
Prices aren't going up because of tariffs.
No. Support metrics. So we're talking about like approval rating and stuff like that. Support metrics exhibit notable inelasticity with respect to adverse event shock. Give up. 2 out of 3.
I do give up on this one.
This quote has a location attached to it in New York. That's a hint. So this is something he said about doing something in New York.
Ooh, and now you're making me feel really bad that I don't know this one.
I'll give you the location in New York. Fifth Avenue is the location in New York.
This is his Trump Tower. There are a lot of things on Fifth Avenue, but he has a Trump Tower on Fifth Avenue, right?
Yeah. What did he say? Did he ever do anything famous he said about Fifth Avenue? What he could do on Fifth Avenue?
Oh, I don't know.
Oh, you haven't heard this one where he says
rebuild Fifth Avenue?
No. He said, maybe you haven't heard this. He says Trump said, I could stand in the middle of Fifth Avenue and shoot somebody, and I wouldn't lose any voters.
I did not know that. No,
it's like no matter what he does, he's not going to lose voters. So this is what maybe this is apocryphal, but this is I always thought he had said that as one associated with him. But support metrics exhibit notable inelasticity with respect to adverse event shocks. So it's a pretty clean way of saying it. All right, 2 out of 3. Great job. Okay, let's move to vacation talk. It's a new segment for the summertime. Vacation talk. Both of us have been on vacation. Ariel, I did all types of vacation recently. So, I went camping. So, roughing it. I did camping. Then I did a very just like normal vacation. I say normal working class, as listeners can see. I got the blue collar. Viewers actually can see that. Listeners can't. I did a Courtyard Marriott. I love Courtyard. I always stay at Courtyard Marriott. Hey, if they want to sponsor the podcast, if they want to give me some free rooms, I will take them. Courtyard Marriott in Oahu. Then my wife, she's always scheming. In a good way. She's scheming. She got the reward points. She's looking for deals. We stayed at a 5-star resort on the Big Island of Hawaii. Like it was like full White Lotus. Like I felt like I was in the TV show, The White Lotus. Like very fancy guests. Like the guests had servants, Ariel. Like there were multiple guests that had servants with them. Like not just one. Like a whole phalanx of clearly the servants that were traveling with them. So I did all different classes. I would say my son liked the camping the best. My son was like, oh yeah, Dean, of all the ones you liked, he was like, let's more camping. I like the 5-star resort the best. I'll go back to that. But it's just some observations, some econ observations I thought I'd share with listeners from my travels. Rich people, what are the rich people up to? So rich people, you can often, if you want to spot trends, what the rich people are doing, usually then trickles down through the rest of the economy. So famously, if you look at what upper class people are naming their kids, that is what everyone else will be naming their kids in 5 years. So I was trying to trend spot. I was trying, what are the well-to-do? What are the White Lotus denizens? What are they up to? All right. You know what they're doing, Ariel? This may actually probably will make you happy, or probably, whatever, embiggen the soul, ennoble the soul, whatever the word is, make you filled with happiness of the world. They're reading. The rich people are reading. They are no phones. They all had books. It was crazy. There's almost nobody on their phone. They were all reading books, actual like paperback, physical books. Almost everywhere there was just books. Like every single person had a sort of a book. They're reading a book by the pool. They're reading a book on the beach, and very much not on their phones. So hopefully that's a sign of the future to come, that people maybe get back to the physical world a bit. But I was surprised. I kept looking for it, and I was no, okay, everyone's got a book. I myself did not have a book. So, but I was playing with my son most of the time. I was, trying to. I didn't have a servant. I couldn't assign a servant to play with him, so I had to, play with my son. Do you have any vacation observations? I don't know. Where have you been?
So I've had different tiers of vacation. So in May, my husband and I took an anniversary trip to Scotland, which was in some ways we stayed in some fancy places and some less fancy places, depending on where we were. But we stayed in a castle on Loch Lomond at this fancy estate, that like Churchill stayed at. They've got pictures of Obama staying there, so that was our fanciest sort of moment. You got greeted with bagpipes, like you pulled up to the to where you got valet parked, and there's a bagpiper personally greeting you when you go in. So that was sort of the fanciest sort of thing. And then we stayed at a lovely bed and breakfast on Isla, which is this little island off the coast. My favorite place that we went because the Scotch is the best in the world. So I will add that. But then we've done a beach vacation with my family, and then now we are. I don't know if you call this vacation. My husband is working. We are in Boston, Wisconsin, which is a little tiny town, like almost 2 hours north of Madison. But my observation is it's really great to go vacation in a place where the cost of living is really low. So my kids we've joined the city swimming pool, the next town over. We got half price on the city swimming pool because it's halfway through the season. I got them the cheapest swim lessons I have ever paid for. Coming from New York, I've got 2 weeks worth of swim lessons for one lesson per child. And we've been going every afternoon. And I swear the quality of lifeguards is better here. Like, people actually expect you to learn how to swim. They, told my kids if they don't pass the swim test, they can't go in the deep end and play in the slide, right? So there's like real consequences. So if they don't pass the swim test, they can't do, the fun thing at the end of the pool. And my daughter is very motivated to pass her test next Thursday. So next Thursday, I'll have to share an update. But incentives really matter for kids, and they actually really like being challenged. And you can do a lot. Your money goes a lot further if you vacation in a place where things are a lot cheaper. So we've gone horseback riding twice on Saturdays for trail rides, which has to be because the cost of land and hay is much cheaper than it would ever be, near New York City. So I've got to say, cost of living makes a huge difference in budget constraints. Yeah. My observation.
And I have a similar observation because I went to Waikiki, and you see a lot of these videos of various tourist destinations, and are just like super overcrowded. Like, of late, I think people are traveling more. Maybe people have more money, or maybe the dollar's like stronger I know that's not true right now, but like previously, like last year, I know a lot of my friends went to Japan because Japan used to be expensive, but now the dollar is so strong relative to the yen that it's much cheaper to go. But you see those places, they seem so overcrowded, and Waikiki was like that. Waikiki can hold, and this is an example of the tragedy of the commons, right? So the more people come, it's like it makes the experience worse, and so it just gets degraded, right? But I like what you're saying. It's like, I don't find an out of the way place to go. Just find like a random spot to go. You don't need to go to where everyone else goes. Like, there's kind of fun things to do everywhere, in my opinion. Like, every city I've gone to, you can find something interesting to get into, especially kids. Like, kids you can like trick into thinking anything's cool. You're just like, hey, this is awesome, right? At a certain age, the kids are at an age where they like really look up to you, right? I assume that's going to go away by teenage years, but there's a certain age they really look up to you. You can just convince them of anything. You're like, yeah, this is awesome. And they're like, oh yeah, this is awesome, right? So, yeah, that's great advice though. Go out of the way. Go anywhere. I was thinking for my next trip, I was looking into Uruguay. I read a Substack on Uruguay, and I was like, oh, it looks interesting. So I was asking my wife, let's go to Uruguay next. You can fly into Buenos Aires and then, head on over to Uruguay. Seems out of the way. Seems like it'd be fun. Let's see. I have a The Price is Right question mark for you, Ariel.
Okay.
This is a game we play occasionally where we look at the price of something and see, okay, why is this price the way it is? So it's related to camping. I go camping. And
Okay, Matt, I need to clarify. So camping can mean different things.
right.
So are you camping in a tent?
Yeah.
And are you parking a car and then pitching a tent? Or are you backpacking in, carrying all of your equipment, multiple miles from your parking spot?
Well, the campers in question were me, my brother-in-law, his 8-year-old, my 8-year-old, and then a 5-year-old. So the camping in question involved parking a car and setting a tent up. So there was a tent involved. It wasn't glamping. It wasn't these people who like rent like a fancy luxury trailer and like, hey, I'm camping right now. No, there was a tent.
Okay.
We didn't hike. We didn't force the 5-year-old, to march 5 miles into the woods. No, we were just at a campsite in San Luis Obispo is where it was. Yeah. And so yeah, we have whatever. We have the tents. We got the fire. That's the highlight. The kids love the fire, right? Making the fire, right?
Oh, yeah.
Which is related to My Price is Right mark.
Okay.
Firewood. So you got the
Yes.
firewood. You could buy the firewood at the store. There's like store firewood. There's also firewood you could buy at the campsite. Which do you think is cheaper? Firewood from the store or firewood at the campsite? Talk to listeners through it. Why would it be one? Why would
Okay.
it be the other?
So my theory is that firewood at the store is going to have some economies of scale. They're going to have, maybe some machinery that's going
Right.
to make it less expensive to produce per unit. Maybe there's going to be more interested parties. They're working with maybe a broader audience of people that they're trying to get by the firewood. So my initial thought is, maybe that's lower than the campground firewood.
Yeah.
The store would be lower than the campground, where I'm guessing maybe a ranger in their off time is, chopping some firewood. This is like, your lumberjack firewood.
Mm-hmm.
But I've been at campgrounds where they really want you to use the firewood that they have there, because they have this concern over like bugs getting imported or, like tree diseases coming in. And so I'm wondering if they're subsidizing the firewood at the campground to kind of encourage you to buy the campground firewood, even though my guess is that to produce it is more expensive.
So campground is your final answer?
Campground is we'll see. The listeners, the other question here is that you have a captive audience.
Exactly.
At the campground. So it's really desperate to feed their kids s'mores before the meltdown starts.
So this would make the price higher at the campground. In econ terms, they're inelastic. It's why you're paying so much for beer at the airport. You have no other options. Like if you're getting a beer at the airport, you got no other options. You don't want
to have to go to the store.
Yeah. And so you're at the campground. You need, where else am I going to go? And I'm going to drive whatever 10 miles to the store. I'm a captive. I'm very inelastic again
okay. We're going to go with the campground firewood is more expensive. The price is higher at the campground.
Oh, I tricked you. I tricked you with my inelastic talk.
No.
You had it all, Ariel. So I was shocked by this because I was thinking, whatever, economies of scale, inelasticity, it's going to be more expensive, but it's way cheaper at the campground. It's exactly what you said. Is they don't want you using firewood from, I guess God knows where. They want to burn the stuff that's from that place because they don't want it to get contaminated. So it's subsidized. Basically, there's a negative externality from burning the other ones, like potentially you can corrupt these whatever. And so their solution is to subsidize the good that doesn't have the negative externality. At least that's why. That's what I could find looking online, because I was shocked that I was like, why is it? Because I was like, let's buy some firewood at the store. And my brother-in-law was like, oh no, it's always cheaper at the campground. And I was like, what? It's like, it makes zero economic sense why it would be cheaper at the campground. But apparently that is the reason. Okay. Let's go to our final segment, consumer surplus, deadweight loss, things that have been giving us consumer surplus, things that have been giving us deadweight loss. I will start. Unalive. Are you familiar with the term unalive, Ariel?
Vaguely. I mean, I'm not sure.
The kids all use it. They don't say dead. They say unalive. I've been unalived. He's been unalived. They all say unalive. It's like a new whatever slang term sweeping the nation's youths. But you're not familiar. Your kids are probably not old enough to.
They're not
say
quite
unalive.
old enough.
Right.
No.
Do you have any idea where the term comes from? Do you have any idea why kids start using the term unalive?
I do not.
So this was, I found super fascinating because I was familiar that unalive had become a thing. I had assumed it was just kids are dumb, whatever. Like, the older generations, we always look down on the youths and be like, all right, their slang terms are, ridiculous. Like, I remember when I was in middle school, the hot new slang term was dope. And my dad being like, oh, that's terrible, So I had just assumed, oh, this is just generational thing. They say unalive. Or I also thought, oh, the coddling of the American youth, like they're like too scared to say dead. Which is sort of where it comes from, but it's from TikTok, and people on TikTok say unalive because the the Chinese Communist Party that runs TikTok censors the word dead. You're not allowed to say the word dead on TikTok. And so the way they get around it, so there's all sorts of slang. I learned this because I'm not on TikTok. But I learned this, but there's all sorts of slang that has developed as a way to get around the censorship. And so I think the word for sex is like segs or something. And instead of saying dead, they say unalive. And so I learned that from the Infinite Scroll Substack, which is one of my favorites. And so consumer surplus, learning new things about word language.
Very nice. Yeah, I'm not on TikTok either. So that would lead me to have no idea about the censorship of TikTok words.
Yeah, I feel like if I was on TikTok for more than an hour, I would be unalive. I would unalive myself on my brief run-ins on the TikTok. But I think, eventually we're going to put videos on there. So I probably should, check to see what people are up to. Do you have any consumer surplus, deadweight loss for us?
So my consumer surplus ties into you should go visit a place that has the lowest cost of living, because I had looked it up online and the community pool was supposed to be $131.20 for a summer membership. And I go in and there's, in New York, you have to like prove that you've paid for something before you even walk anywhere close to it, right? So, they would have checked your ticket 3 times before you got to the pool.
Unless it's the subway, then you can just walk on the subway, though, right?
You can, 50% of people are jumping over the subway turnstiles or something like that, right? So that's high. Otherwise, for the community pool, they're like, oh yeah, you can come up, you can pay. But they're like, we just know who people are here, and we don't know who you are. So I asked them. They're like, oh wait, let me check. Actually, it's after the season. You only have to pay half price now. So like, I paid half the price of the community pool membership, so I paid $62.10 or something like that, for my pool membership, when I was already willing to pay $131. So maybe this is not good for the city of Wisconsin Dells that lost $60 worth of revenue.
It's good now. They're getting advertised, but everyone's going to go on vacation there.
But, and most people go to the water park. So it's this like water park capital of the area, and my kids are perfectly content, at the city pool, but they've been learning to swim where, it's much less expensive than a New York City pool. But I got a lot of value out of that 50% off our membership for 3 weeks that we're there.
Nice. My consumer surplus, another consumer surplus related to this, is I'm a big proponent of, your discretionary spending. You should use it to make your life easier. If it makes your life easier, like, it's a good purchase. And so I've been swimming a lot. Swimming is great exercise, especially as you get on in years, as I have, like, the knees, running is hard, all these exercises, right? Like, they're really, like, I have this friend, he's his doctor, right? Rich doctor. I go into his garage. Okay? His garage is like just workout equipment. It's a giant garage. It's filled with workout equipment. Everything's workout equipment. There's like TVs on the wall. It's like, it must have cost tens of thousands of dollars, right? And he gestures to all the equipment and he's like, all of this, Matt, is so I can play pickup basketball once a week. Like, it's because he's so old, his body's so fragile that he has to work out, stretch all this stuff just so he could play basketball once a week without getting injured. Okay. This is what you have to look forward to when you get up to my age, right? But swimming, great exercise, right? So I got to do the swimming now. I can't run as much, can't play. I stopped playing pickup in my 30s because, whatever, I kept getting injured. So swimming, great exercise, but it is so boring. Have you ever like swam, Ariel? Like, have you ever like swam for exercise?
I swam competitively in high school for 4 years on the swim team. So yes, I can swim laps. I was a slow swimmer because I always planned my speeches for speech and debate while I was swimming.
But how
because
did
there's
you
not much
keep
else to
track of,
do.
but the problem is you have to keep track of the laps. So it's like I find like I can't let my mind wander when I swim because I'm keeping track of the laps.
So if
So
you swim on a team, you have to
oh
keep up with everybody else, and you just stop when the person in front of you stops. So you can
yeah,
stop
so well
counting.
yeah, okay, yes. There you have to think less and you can plan your speeches. Yes, that's good. But if you're just swimming on your own for like exercise, you have to like keep track, and it's like I guess you could do it by time, but I gotta keep track. So it's like I can't let my mind wander. It's so annoying. It's the most boring sport. Actually, I have a hot take theory. Swimmers will get mad at me. If you look at the like famous swimmers, like your Ryan Lochte's, right? Like your like listeners
Oh
look up
yes,
Ryan
Katie
Lochte.
Ledecky.
I don't know about Katie Ledecky. I'm not willing to speak on her, but like Ryan Lochte, I'm trying to think. There was another male swimmer, Michael Phelps.
Michael Phelps.
You listen to Michael Phelps be interviewed. They don't seem like the sharpest people, like the Ryan Lochte's, the Michael Phelps of the world. I have a feeling that you sort of have to be like that to like, like, otherwise your brain, like if you have an active brain, it'll just like kill you swimming just because it's just like so boring, so monotonous, right? But I finally discovered a way to make it less painless, and that is waterproof headphones. So
I was going to tell you, Matt, they make those, and they make little
I
like waterproof MP3 players you can
I
download.
was
Take it off.
very suspicious on whether that or not they would work. I got a pair. So I was so bored. I got a pair and I was like, will this work? Can it really work underwater? And it works great. It works great. The waterproof earbuds combined with you got to wear the ear, whatever, like earplugs. And that actually like the earplug actually makes it better so you can hear more. So it has vastly improved my my swimming
Your swimming
capabilities
experience.
because I've been training for this race. This was like an ocean race that I got to do this weekend. So we'll find out. Maybe I'll drown. Maybe I will. Maybe since I just called all professional swimmers dumb, maybe they'll attack me in the water.
Katie Ledecky's pretty bright. I'm gonna
look.
say.
That's why I didn't want to say about. I don't know anything about Katie Ledecky. I know what I've seen from Ryan Lochte and Michael Phelps. Okay, so I'm admittedly I don't have the data. Okay, people don't get mad at me. I'm just going off a sample size of 2. All right, which as we know from econometrics is dangerous. You should not extrapolate from such a low sample size. But hey, this is an off the cuff podcast, so extrapolate away. Oh, I should mention my opinions do not reflect those of the Federal Reserve or its or its banks.
Well, Matt, you reminded me. I have another consumer surplus from going to a small place. Is that the pickleball courts are always available. So now my husband and I have taken up pickleball. It's just down the street from us. We can walk. We're New Yorkers. We like to walk places, so we can walk down the block. And the pickleball is always open. The courts are always available. They're well maintained. We've been playing an old people's sport. Even if we aren't as old as you are, we still have been, enjoying.
So I used to play pickleball, but I'm terrified I'll tear something with pickleball because it seems like the start and stop motions. Like I've seen people tear an Achilles. I've seen people tear an MCL. That is my nightmare. I know at some point I'll tear my Achilles, and I'm just like, that's going to be tough. So I occasionally will play pickleball. It's really fun. What people don't understand, like the tennis players look down at the pickleball players, like play tennis. Like tennis is so much better. It's like, look, tennis is hard, people. Okay, like if you don't grow up playing tennis, I can't play it. Like it's too hard. Anybody can play pickleball. Like that's what's nice. It's like levels the playing field. I play pickleball with my sister, play pickleball with my wife. All right, everybody can get in on the pickleball action. Though I will say, we played in Hawaii. We played at the 5-star resort, my wife and I and our son. This is how fancy the resort is, Ariel. I took my shirt off because it was hot. Somebody came and told me to put my shirt back on.
I was going to ask if you had to wear an all white outfit. Like, was it Wimbledon rules for you had black in your tennis attire?
There was a number of people that were fully decked out because it was like the tennis and the pickleball courts. They were fully decked out there for the tennis. They were there with their like instructors, like the paid coaches, and me and my wrong side of the tracks family show up. We're playing. It's hot, and I was like, "Oh, pop my shirt off here." We're in Hawaii. Immediately, phalanx of attendees were on me. Oh, sir, put away. No one wants to see your man boobs. They didn't come to Hawaii. They didn't pay $500 a night to see those. Put those. We needed to cover up. And I was like, oh, sorry, I didn't know it was a rule. That'd be an example of me doing a negative externality to everyone else, and that they have their way of solving it, which was tell me to put my shirt back on. All right. I think that's enough talk for the podcast. Great chatting with you. Great to see you, Ariel. I know last week we didn't have a podcast. Next week, I don't know if you'll be on. Maybe you'll be on next week. Next week we have a guest. So, we'll figure all that out. Any last words for the listeners before we go?
I think that about wraps it up.
Hey, everyone. Thanks for listening, and keep your shirt on.